The outer rim of the Galactic Empire had always been quiet. Most Imperial fleets avoided this region, deeming it too distant, too uneventful, and too small to hold any strategic importance. The sector's planets were cold, barren, or sparsely populated. Traders passed by quickly and military patrols were few. That calm, predictable quiet was shattered one morning when the sensors at the Imperial command station on GalacticPrime began beeping violently. Lieutenant Karo Vasri, the officer on duty, blinked in disbelief at the screen. "Commander, you need to see this," he said, his voice trembling slightly. On the main display, a small blip moved steadily through the sector. It was a human warship. The Empire had long considered humans unpredictable, perhaps dangerous, but they rarely ventured into Imperial space uninvited. This sector in particular was deemed safe from human interference. And yet here it was. A warship, sleek, compact, and bristling with weapons, moving steadily toward the heart of the sector. Commander Rella Varn, a woman known for her calm under pressure, quickly approached. Her dark eyes scanned the readings. "Are you certain?" she asked, her voice even but tense. "Yes, Commander," Karo replied. "All signatures match human technology. I've never seen anything like this ship before. It's different, smaller, faster, and, well, somehow harder to track." Rella frowned. Humans were clever, but this was beyond ordinary. She immediately activated the communication channel to the Imperial High Command. The alert reached the High Command almost instantly and panic rippled through the ranks. In the grand halls of the Empire's capital, generals and admirals gathered, their faces tight with concern. "Impossible," one general muttered. "This sector is far from human space. Their fleets shouldn't be able to reach us here without months of preparation." "They are human," another officer replied sharply, "and humans do not always follow logic. They are bold, cunning, and sometimes reckless. We cannot underestimate them." Rella stood silently, thinking. She had faced human raiders before, but never had she witnessed one appear in a sector so far from known human territories. She had to act quickly. Any misstep could lead to a disaster. Meanwhile, on the human warship itself, Captain Daniel Hayes reclined in his chair, observing the star systems on his monitor. The USS Resolute was small but heavily armed, designed for speed, defense, and tactical ingenuity rather than sheer firepower. Hayes had chosen this route deliberately. He wanted to test the Empire, to see how they would react when a human ship appeared where it was least expected. Approaching the GalacticPrime sector, he said to his first officer, Lieutenant Mira Keel. Her green eyes glimmered with curiosity. "Sensors indicate no hostile ships nearby. Imperial patrols, if they exist, will detect us soon enough." Hayes smiled. Humans often thrived on calculated risks. Where others hesitated, humans moved boldly. Where others expected caution, humans delivered surprise. He knew the Empire would panic. He had watched them do it before. Back on GalacticPrime, the first Imperial patrol ships were dispatched. Small cruisers, painted in the stark black and gold of the Empire, glided toward the human warship's last known position. Lieutenant Karo tracked the approaching fleet nervously. "They're on their way, Commander," he said. Rella nodded. "Good. I want eyes on that ship. Do not engage unless absolutely necessary. Observe and report." She understood humans well enough to know that any misjudgment could turn into a confrontation. Humans were clever, and they often fought in ways the Empire had never seen. The human ship, sensing the incoming Imperial cruisers, did not alter course immediately. Hayes allowed the patrol to draw closer, studying their movements carefully. "Notice their formation?" he asked Mira. "They think numbers guarantee control. They underestimate how humans operate. Watch carefully." The Imperial fleet approached cautiously, scanning for weapons and shields. Imperial sensors tried to detect the ship's structure, but something about it made the readings inconsistent. It was fast, yes, but also unusually precise. It seemed to anticipate the sensor's signals and evade them almost effortlessly. "This is unusual," an Imperial officer muttered. "Their ship is small, but it's dodging our scans as if it knows we are here. Rella frowned. Humans are different, she said. They combine skill, instinct, and technology in ways we cannot always predict. We must stay alert. Hayes activated a small holographic map in front of him, showing the sector. He marked the patrol ships' positions, their speeds, and their formations. We'll skirt the asteroid belt here, he said, pointing to a dense field of floating rocks. They will lose track of us momentarily. It's classic human ingenuity, using the environment to your advantage. Mira raised an eyebrow. Do you really want to engage them? We could avoid contact entirely. Hayes shook his head. Not yet. I want them to see us, to react. Humans are watched and studied constantly. This is a test of the Empire's response. Let them panic. Let them learn. The human warship slipped silently into the asteroid belt, moving with grace that seemed almost unnatural. The Imperial cruisers followed, but the dense field confused their sensors. Beeps and alarms rang continuously in their control rooms, and tension mounted. For the first time, some officers began to doubt whether the humans could actually be tracked and controlled. Commander, Caro said, his voice strained. They've disappeared from the main sensors. Rella clenched her fists. They're still here. Humans are clever. We have to anticipate every move. I want flanking drones deployed, no mistakes. As the Imperial fleet scrambled to respond, the human warship emerged on the other side of the asteroid belt, unscathed. Hayes smiled. See? Predictable patterns can be outsmarted. They think numbers and control make them safe. Humans think differently. The Empire's communication channels buzzed with urgent messages. News of the human warship spread quickly through the sector, reaching every Imperial station and outpost. Panic grew as speculation ran wild. Why would a human ship be here? One admiral asked. Are they scouting, planning an attack, or something else? Humans rarely do things for simple reasons, another officer said. They are bold, unpredictable, and often cleverer than we expect. We cannot assume intentions. Back aboard the USS Resolute, Hayes monitored the Empire's reactions with a sense of quiet amusement. Humans had long been underestimated across the galaxy, and today was another example. His mission was simple: observe, test, and remind the Empire that humans were never ordinary, never weak, and never to be taken lightly. As night fell over GalacticPrime, Imperial officers continued to argue strategy, while the human ship drifted quietly in the sector. One thing became clear: the Empire had encountered a species that could not be predicted by power, by numbers, or by fear. Humans were different, and this difference made them dangerous, respected, and fascinating. Hayes looked out the viewport at the stars, stretching endlessly ahead. One day, he said quietly to Mira, the galaxy will understand humans. Until then, let them panic a little. It teaches them humility. And somewhere in the Imperial High Command, generals and admirals were learning a very different lesson. Humans did not arrive in a sector to follow rules. They arrived to challenge assumptions. The quiet of the outer rim was broken, but not with weapons fire. It was broken with the presence of a single human warship, and the knowledge that humans were far more capable than the Empire had ever imagined. By the time the Imperial fleet realized how elusive the ship was, Hayes had already plotted a course toward the next star system. The sector had been watched, scanned, and even feared, but the human warship had moved with precision and restraint, showing the Empire that confrontation was not always necessary to demonstrate power. Rella Varn stared at the display one last time. The humans had vanished from her sensors, yet their presence lingered in every conversation, every decision, every anxious glance across the command room. One thought echoed in her mind. We cannot underestimate them. We simply cannot. And so the first chapter of this unexpected encounter closed, with a lesson clear to all who observed. Humans may be few in number, but they are formidable. Clever, bold, and unafraid. They were a species the Galactic Empire could never fully predict, and perhaps never control. The quiet of the sector returned, but it was no longer the same quiet. It carried with it the shadow of a single human warship, and the knowledge that the galaxy had just been reminded of humanity's power. The human warship had vanished from Imperial sensors, yet its presence continued to unsettle the officers on Lyra Prime. Commander Rella Varn paced the floor of the control room, her expression tight with frustration. Every officer she spoke to repeated the same sentiment. The humans were unpredictable. They had not attacked, yet their mere presence demanded immediate action. "Prepare all active cruisers for pursuit," Rella ordered, her voice steady despite her inner tension. "We will not allow a human vessel to roam freely through Imperial space without an answer." Lieutenant Karo Vasri, still watching the empty displays, hesitated. "Commander, they could be anywhere by now. Our sensors have no trace." "They can be anywhere, yes," Rella said. "But humans are creatures of habit in their unpredictability. They make bold moves, but those moves are often deliberate. We track patterns and we learn." Meanwhile, aboard the USS Resolute, Captain Daniel Hayes monitored the Imperial fleet's movements with quiet satisfaction. The humans had a saying, "Knowledge is power, and knowing your enemy's intentions before they know yours is half the battle." Hayes leaned back, his hands folded over the console. "Lieutenant Keel," he said, "they're moving to intercept, but they don't know how we think yet. They assume numbers equal control. Let's see how well that serves them." Keel, his first officer, nodded. "They are predictable in their overconfidence." "Shall we continue with the current course?" "Exactly," Hayes replied. "We give them enough room to make mistakes, and then we adjust." Humans don't just fight. They anticipate, adapt, and survive. Back in the Imperial High Command, the panic had grown. Reports of a human vessel entering a distant sector had sent waves of fear throughout the upper echelons. Admiral Terran Holvik, one of the most senior officers in the Empire, slammed his fist on the table during a council meeting. "How can one human ship cause this much disruption?" he demanded. "We have entire fleets at our disposal, yet we cannot track it, cannot predict it, cannot control it." A junior officer, pale and nervous, hesitated before speaking. "Sir, humans have a reputation for unconventional tactics. They do not follow rules or strategies we expect. They think differently." Holvik's eyes narrowed. "Think differently? That is a dangerous understatement. If one ship can paralyze our strategy, what happens when more arrive?" The council room fell silent. The fear was not just of the ship itself, but of the unknown. Humans were clever, resourceful, and often fearless in the face of superior forces. That combination made them dangerous, and the Empire had no playbook for dealing with them. On Lyra Prime, Commander Rella coordinated the pursuit fleet. She ordered drones to flank suspected regions, sent scanning signals through every nebula and asteroid belt, and monitored every communication channel for the slightest hint of the human ship. Every officer in the control room was tense, aware that one wrong move could let the human escape, or worse, turn the tables. The USS Resolute moved quietly, skimming along the edge of a dense asteroid field. Hayes maneuvered with precision, using the environment to mask their presence. Imperial sensors picked up only fragments of readings, brief, inconsistent blips that suggested a ghost more than a ship. "They're clever," Mira said, eyes on the monitor. "Every time they think we might detect them, they disappear, almost like they predicted our every move." Hayes nodded. "That's humans. They do not rely on brute force alone. They use their minds, their instincts, their environment. They anticipate the enemy's logic, and then choose a path no one expects. It's what makes them effective." Imperial cruisers entered the asteroid field, scanning every crevice, every shadow. Yet the human ship remained elusive. Every attempt to intercept it failed. Imperial officers grew frustrated. Their confidence in numbers and technology faltered against a single human warship. "This is humiliating," one officer muttered. "We have the largest fleet in this sector, and yet they move like a phantom." Rella did not respond immediately. She understood the truth in those words. Humans were different, unpredictable, and clever. To underestimate them was to invite disaster. She knew she had to think like a human to anticipate their next move, and even then, success was not guaranteed. The human warship, meanwhile, approached a small colony in the sector. Its sensors detected signs of damage from a recent meteor storm, communication arrays partially offline, and essential systems struggling to maintain power. Hayes made a decision. He would help. "Set course for the colony," he ordered. "We can demonstrate human ingenuity and restraint at the same time. It's time they saw what humans are capable of beyond combat." Mira raised an eyebrow. "You intend to aid them?" Won't that complicate the Empire's pursuit? Humans are not always about conflict, Hayes said calmly. Sometimes strength is shown through help, through creativity, through solutions no one expects. The Empire will notice. They will learn. The USS Resolute arrived at the colony undetected. Hayes deployed repair drones and distributed essential supplies using small, quiet shuttles. Colony leaders were stunned to see a human ship in their sector, not attacking but helping. Communications were restored, systems stabilized, and morale soared. Back in the Imperial fleet, the patrol ships picked up energy readings from the colony. Imperial officers assumed the human had begun an aggressive maneuver. They readied weapons, expecting an attack. Yet nothing happened. The humans had not fired a single shot. They're aiding them? Lieutenant Caro asked, confused. Rella frowned. Humans are clever. They show strength in ways we don't expect. We must observe carefully. They are teaching us a lesson. In the colony, Captain Hayes watched the repair drones work efficiently. Mira noted the quiet admiration in the colony leader's eyes. They trust you already, she said. I know, Hayes replied. Humans earn trust differently. They combine skill, courage, and thoughtfulness. They act, but not recklessly. They understand consequences and they adapt. That is why the Empire struggles to predict us. The Imperial fleet, frustrated and confused, attempted to close the distance. Yet the human ship moved with precision, evading detection and keeping out of range. Officers aboard the cruisers muttered that humans seemed to anticipate their every move. A realization that filled them with unease. Admiral Holvik, monitoring from the command center, slammed his hand on the console. How can one ship outmaneuver an entire fleet? How? Sir, a junior officer replied carefully, humans do not follow conventional strategies. They are unpredictable, resourceful, and effective beyond expectation. Holvik's face hardened. Unpredictable does not mean unbeatable. We will find them, and we will force them to reveal themselves. Meanwhile, Hayes prepared to leave the colony. His mission had been simple. Observe, demonstrate human capability, and leave a mark on the Empire. The humans' actions in the colony were not meant to provoke, but to show the Empire that humans could combine courage, ingenuity, and compassion all at once. As the USS Resolute slipped away, Imperial officers scrambled to interpret the events. The humans had not attacked, yet they had shown the Empire's vulnerability. They had moved boldly where others would have hesitated, aided a colony in distress, and vanished again without confrontation. Rella Varn watched the fading blip of the human ship. They are teaching us something, she said quietly. Humans are more than fighters. They are strategists, thinkers, and unpredictable in ways we cannot always control. Captain Hayes and Mira observed the stars ahead. One day, Hayes said softly, they will understand us better. But today they learned that humans do not follow the rules they expect. They learn that humans are clever, bold, and capable of surprising every enemy they face. The sector returned to its uneasy quiet. Imperial cruisers lingered near the colony, cautious, frustrated, and confused. Yet the lessons of the human warship lingered. A single human ship had evaded a fleet, helped a colony, and demonstrated skills the Empire could not easily counter. In the command room on GalacticPrime, Lieutenant Caro shook his head. I don't understand them. How can one ship do all of this? Rella did not answer immediately. She knew that the human way was not about brute force alone. It was about cleverness, foresight, and courage. We will learn, she said finally. And when we do, we will remember this day. Humans are not ordinary. They are something else entirely. The USS Resolute continued on its path through the stars, leaving behind a sector filled with Imperial fleets unsure of what they had just witnessed. One lesson was clear. Humans could never be predicted, never easily contained, and never underestimated. The galaxy had just been reminded of humanity's power, not through battle or conquest, but through cunning, courage, and calculated action. And in that realization, the Empire began to fear and respect the humans more than ever before. The Imperial High Command was still reeling from the human warship's audacity. A single vessel had infiltrated a distant sector, evaded an entire fleet, and aided a colony without firing a shot. For Admiral Terran Holvik, the situation was intolerable. This is a lesson we cannot ignore, Holvik growled during a council meeting. One human ship has humiliated our fleets. We cannot let this continue. I want an intercept mission. Forceful, precise, and undeniable. They must not leave this sector until we have answers. Commander Relevarn and her officers listened as the plan was laid out. The Empire would send a coordinated strike. 3 heavy cruisers, 2 frigates, and a squadron of smaller fighters. Their mission was simple: trap the human ship and demand immediate surrender. "Sir," Rella said cautiously, "humans are unpredictable. They do not act like our usual enemies. They anticipate, adapt, and often think outside every rule we know. A direct confrontation may not succeed." Holvik's eyes narrowed. "We are not discussing options. We are discussing orders. You will lead the intercept. Ensure that human ship cannot escape." Rella felt a pang of tension. She respected the humans' ingenuity and resourcefulness. One misstep could turn this mission into a disaster. Still, she nodded. "Understood, Admiral. We will proceed." Meanwhile, aboard the USS Resolute, Captain Daniel Hayes reviewed the Imperial fleet's likely response. His sensors picked up the energy signatures of multiple warships converging on his location. The Empire had recovered from its initial panic and was now moving to intercept. Hayes smiled. Humans thrived under pressure, and this was precisely the kind of challenge that defined them. "Lieutenant Keel," he said, "they are coming. They will attempt to trap us. Let's see how well their strategies hold against creativity and foresight." Mira's eyes widened as she examined the sensor readouts. "They are sending 3 heavy cruisers, 2 frigates, and at least a dozen fighters. They mean to corner us." Hayes nodded. "Humans have never shied away from difficult odds. Prepare evasive maneuvers, but remember, we do not need to fight. Sometimes survival is the cleverest display of power." The human warship moved quietly through the sector, using asteroids, nebula clouds, and debris fields to obscure its presence. The Imperial fleet approached with confidence, expecting to find an easy target. The humans, however, were already several steps ahead. Relevarn watched the fleet's sensors closely. "They're still out there," she said quietly. "Every attempt to detect them gives inconsistent readings. They are cleverer than we anticipated." Lieutenant Caro frowned. "Commander, we have numbers. We have firepower. Why can't we locate them?" Rella's expression was serious. "Humans do not always rely on strength alone. They use creativity, observation, and instincts. This is not a battle of fleets. This is a battle of minds." The Imperial fleet entered a dense asteroid field thinking to corner the human ship. But the USS Resolute anticipated this. Hayes guided the ship through narrow paths where the Imperial sensors could not accurately track him. Small movements, tiny course changes, and precise timing allowed the human ship to slip past the fleet without confrontation. One of the Imperial officers shouted, frustrated, "They are escaping again!" Rella remained calm, though tension gripped her. "No, they are teaching us. Watch carefully. Humans often turn disadvantage into advantage. There is a pattern, if we can understand it." Hayes activated a series of holographic decoys, small drones mimicking the ship's energy signature. Imperial sensors locked onto these decoys, mistaking them for the real ship. While the fleet focused on false targets, the USS Resolute moved silently behind them, unseen. "Notice," Hayes said to Mira, "they assume strength comes from control and numbers. Humans turn assumptions into tools. Observation and adaptation are weapons as powerful as any cannon." In the Imperial fleet, confusion mounted. Officers argued over sensor readings. Some insisted the humans were directly in front of them. Others reported the ship had vanished again. Frustration and fear began to undermine discipline. Admiral Holvik slammed his fist against the console. "I want that ship located now. Do not allow it to escape." Rella's voice was firm. "Sir, focusing solely on pursuit is a mistake. Humans are not conventional. We must think as they think. Predicting their logic requires flexibility, not rigidity." Holvik glared but did not respond. The fleet continued its approach, but the human ship maintained the advantage. Hayes guided the Resolute along a narrow path through a gas cloud. The ship's stealth systems, enhanced by natural interference, rendered it almost invisible to Imperial sensors. "Lieutenant Keel," Hayes said, "observe the patterns. Humans act with calculated boldness. They exploit both environment and perception. They will not simply fight, they will adapt." Mira studied the readings carefully. "It's impressive. They've evaded an entire fleet without firing a shot, and they're teaching us how to think differently." Meanwhile, in the Imperial control room, Rella tracked anomalies in the fleet's sensor data. She realized that the humans were not just hiding, they were guiding the Empire's actions. Every move of the fleet seemed predicted and countered, yet the humans never engaged directly. "They are not fleeing," Rella whispered. "They are demonstrating control through subtlety. Humans are more than fighters, they are strategists." The USS Resolute finally emerged from the gas cloud near another small colony. Hayes scanned the region. The colony's systems were struggling due to previous pirate raids and environmental damage. He made a decision. "Prepare support drones," he instructed Mira. "We will aid this colony just as we did before. Humans show strength through assistance, not only combat. The Empire will observe, and they will learn that humans define power differently." Mira nodded. "They will not attack us?" "No," Hayes replied. "They respect capability and intention. Humans do not always seek conflict. We show strength through intelligence, strategy, and courage. Sometimes, that is more powerful than any weapon." As the human drones repaired the colony's systems, Imperial officers aboard the fleet detected activity. Initially, they assumed hostile intent. Weapons were readied. Orders to intercept were prepared. Then they realized the humans were helping. No shots were fired. No attacks launched. The humans were providing aid to a population the Empire had overlooked. Lieutenant Caro shook his head. They are helping? Why?" Rella exhaled slowly. "Humans demonstrate strength differently. They combine ingenuity, courage, and morality. They are teaching us that force is not always the path to power. Observation and adaptation are equally effective." Admiral Holvik's frustration grew. They continue to evade and now aid civilians? "This is infuriating. How can one species accomplish all this?" Rella remained calm. "Sir, it is not brute force. It is intelligence. Humans think beyond what we expect. They act boldly yet carefully. That is why they succeed against odds that would overwhelm others." The human warship completed its mission, stabilizing the colony and ensuring its safety. Hayes plotted a course to exit the sector. The Empire's fleet, though powerful, had been outmaneuvered at every turn. Their frustration and confusion were palpable. "Humans," Hayes said quietly, "will never be predictable. They combine courage, intelligence, and strategy in ways no one expects. Today we've shown them that. Tomorrow they will remember it." The sector grew quiet once more, but the lessons lingered. Imperial officers discussed the events long after the humans had vanished. They debated tactics, strategy, and human nature. One conclusion became undeniable. Humans could not be underestimated. Rella Varn stared at the last readings of the human ship. "They have taught us something important," she said softly. "Humans are not just fighters, they are thinkers. They see opportunity, adapt, and act boldly. That is what makes them dangerous and admirable." The USS Resolute sailed on, leaving the Imperial fleet behind. The humans had not engaged in battle, yet they had demonstrated their superiority in thought, strategy, and adaptability. The Empire had been challenged not by weapons but by ingenuity, courage, and foresight. In the cold expanse of space, Captain Hayes looked toward the stars ahead. "One day," he said, "the Empire will understand. But for now we let them learn. Humans will always act in ways others cannot predict, and that is our strength." The galaxy had been reminded once again. Humans were not ordinary. They were clever, courageous, and capable of turning even a fleet of powerful warships into observers of their brilliance. The Empire had chased them, tried to corner them, and failed. The lesson was clear. Humans were a species unlike any other, capable of shaping the course of entire sectors without firing a single shot. And so, the humans continued their journey, leaving behind a sector filled with Imperial officers who had been both challenged and enlightened. The USS Resolute moved steadily through the stars, a silent reminder that in the vast galaxy, courage, intelligence, and ingenuity could triumph over numbers, firepower, and fear. The Imperial High Command was quiet for the first time in days. The human warship had vanished, leaving confusion, frustration, and awe behind. Commanders argued less and observed more, for the lesson from the USS Resolute had been clear. Humans were clever, bold, and unpredictable in ways the Empire could not fully anticipate. Commander Rella Varn leaned over her console, reviewing the sensor data one last time. Even though the human ship was gone from this sector, traces of its actions remained. Colonies had been stabilized, minor pirate activity had been interrupted, and Imperial officers were forced to confront the truth. A single human ship could influence an entire sector without firing a single shot. Lieutenant Caro Vasri frowned.
Commander, the humans,
They didn't attack.
they helped.
Why would they risk entering our space just to aid colonies? Rella's eyes softened with thought. Humans are not always about aggression. They show power in other ways, through intelligence, strategy, and morality. Today, they've reminded us that strength is not just measured in firepower, but in foresight and skill. Meanwhile, Captain Daniel Hayes piloted the USS Resolute beyond the sector, glancing at the data streaming across his display. His crew, including Lieutenant Mirakeel, worked quietly, but their minds were alert. Hayes had learned long ago that humans thrived under pressure, and this mission had demonstrated it clearly. They are watching us even now. Mira said, "The Empire will not forget this. They may never forgive the way we evaded them." Hayes smiled. "Forgiveness is irrelevant. Understanding is more important. The Empire is beginning to see the truth about humans. Clever, resourceful, courageous, and disciplined. They may have power in numbers, but we have power in unpredictability and innovation." Today was a lesson they could not ignore. Back in the Imperial High Command, discussions continued. Admiral Holvik paced, reviewing the reports from Yalara Prime and neighboring sectors. The humans had acted in ways that contradicted every expectation, and the officers under his command were starting to doubt what they thought they knew about strategy. One officer spoke nervously. "Sir, it's clear they are not simple adversaries. They combine courage, skill, and creativity in ways that defy prediction. One human ship disrupted multiple fleets and influenced a colony without firing a single shot." Holvik's eyes narrowed. "And they did it deliberately. That is worse than any attack. They forced us to confront our assumptions and found us wanting. We must understand humans better. We must study them. We cannot allow this level of unpredictability to continue." Commander Rella was called to present a full report. She addressed the council with careful words. "The humans are not motivated solely by conquest or survival. They operate with intelligence, foresight, and morality. Their strategy is not merely to fight, but to observe, adapt, and achieve objectives in unconventional ways. They are unpredictable, but that unpredictability is calculated. They understand their environment and exploit it." Several officers murmured among themselves. One young lieutenant whispered, "They're teaching us, and we didn't even realize it until now." "Exactly," Rella said. "Humans demonstrate strength without confrontation. They influence outcomes while avoiding direct conflict. Their presence alone can force entire fleets to rethink strategy. That is the power of humans." Across the sector, the USS Resolute continued its mission quietly. Hayes and Mira watched as energy readings from nearby colonies indicated stability and restored communication. It was a demonstration of human ingenuity and foresight, another example of their ability to achieve objectives without unnecessary conflict. "They will talk about this for months," Mira said. "The Empire, they will never see humans the same way again." Hayes nodded. "Humans are not ordinary. They show courage when others would hesitate, creativity when others would follow rules, and resourcefulness when others would rely on force. Today we've reminded the Empire of that. Tomorrow they will remember." Even as the human ship moved on, Imperial patrols continued to search. Their curiosity had shifted from anger to genuine respect. The lessons from the humans were difficult to articulate, yet impossible to ignore. Officers realized that no amount of firepower could guarantee victory against a species capable of such foresight and adaptability. In one remote sector station, a young Imperial officer reported to his commander, "Sir, I've been reviewing the human mission. They stabilized a colony, evaded multiple cruisers, and managed to stay completely undetected." "How is this possible?" His commander shook his head. "It's simple, though difficult to execute. Humans are clever. They anticipate, adapt, and exploit every advantage. Strategy, observation, and adaptability. These are as much weapons as lasers or shields. Never forget that." On board the USS Resolute, Hayes plotted a course toward a distant sector, far from the Empire's main fleets. "We've proven our point," he said to Mira, "but the lesson continues. Humans are a species to be respected, not feared. They are bold, intelligent, and principled. That is the message the Empire must learn." Mira glanced at him. "Do you think they'll ever truly understand?" "Perhaps not fully," Hayes replied. "But understanding is a process. Today they saw humans act in ways they did not expect. That is enough to start the process. Humans are memorable for more than their firepower. They are memorable for their minds, their courage, and their creativity. That is why they endure. In the Imperial High Command, the mood had changed. Officers who had once argued for immediate attack now advocated for careful observation. They acknowledged humans' ability to influence outcomes without violence, to turn advantage from risk and to think several steps ahead. Admiral Holvik begrudgingly admitted, "The humans are cleverer than we imagined. One ship has taught us more than an entire fleet of simulations. They are not merely a threat. They are a species capable of reshaping our understanding of strategy and capability." Commander Rella, still at her console, noted a lingering feeling of respect mixed with unease. The humans were unpredictable, yes, but they were also principled. Courage and intelligence guided their actions. They were not conquerors, but problem solvers, and that combination made them formidable. In the cold reaches of space, the USS Resolute glided past distant stars, leaving the sector behind. Hayes took a moment to reflect. The mission had been simple in planning: enter the sector, observe, and demonstrate human capability. Yet its impact on the Empire was profound. One ship had disrupted fleets, influenced colonies, and reminded an entire civilization that humans could never be underestimated. "Everywhere humans go," Hayes said quietly, "they leave a mark. Not because they seek war, but because they act with intelligence, courage, and foresight. That is why the Empire cannot predict them, and why they will always be remarkable." Mira watched the stars silently. "It is true. Humans are something else entirely," Hayes nodded. "Yes, and the galaxy will learn it slowly but inevitably. Today, the Empire saw humans as clever, daring, and principled. Tomorrow, they will remember it. And that is the power of humanity." Back on Lyra Prime, Imperial officers continued analyzing the human ship's path. Colonies had received aid. Pirate activity had diminished. Fleet coordination had been tested and found vulnerable. The lesson was clear. Humans did not follow the same rules as others. They acted boldly, thinking ahead, and used ingenuity as a weapon. Relevarn closed her console and took a deep breath. "They are not ordinary," she said softly. "They are clever, courageous, and resourceful, and we have only begun to understand them." Admiral Holvik, observing the reports, nodded reluctantly. "Humans are more than fighters. They are thinkers, planners, and problem solvers. Their strength is in their mind, their courage, and their ability to act when others hesitate. We must respect that." Even as the sector returned to a semblance of quiet, the presence of the human warship lingered in memory. Imperial officers had been forced to reconsider everything they thought they knew about strategy, courage, and intelligence. One human ship had changed the way an entire fleet viewed the galaxy. On the USS Resolute, Captain Hayes smiled faintly. "They will remember today," he said. "They will respect it. And that is enough. Humans leave their mark not through fear, but through action, ingenuity, and courage. That is our way." Mirakel nodded, her eyes on the stars. "And one day the galaxy will understand. They cannot ignore humans forever." Hayes leaned back in his chair, watching the stars pass. "No," he said softly. "They cannot. Humans are clever, brave, and principled, and that is why we endure. That is why we are never ordinary. Today, we have shown it once more." The human warship continued its journey into the unknown, leaving behind lessons that the Empire would not forget. A single ship had challenged assumptions, defied predictions, and demonstrated the true nature of humanity. Intelligent, courageous, and capable of remarkable deeds, even in the face of overwhelming odds. And somewhere in the Imperial High Command, officers quietly acknowledged the truth they could not deny. Humans were different. Humans were extraordinary, and the galaxy had only begun to see what that truly meant. The galaxy seemed quieter, yet the echoes of the human warship's actions rippled across Imperial space. Reports of colonies stabilized, pirate activity disrupted, and fleets outmaneuvered were still being analyzed. Imperial officers whispered about the humans in a mix of awe, frustration, and curiosity. Admiral Holvik stood in the observation deck of the High Command Station, watching the stars slowly drift by. He clenched his hands behind his back. "One ship," he muttered. "And yet it has reminded us how limited we are in predicting humans. They are clever, bold, and disciplined beyond any measure we know." Commander Relevarn joined him, quietly observing the reports streaming on the displays. "Admiral, they have left us lessons that cannot be ignored. One human ship has destabilized multiple fleets and reminded us that intelligence, foresight, and courage can outweigh raw firepower." Holvik's gaze hardened. They are not just fighters, they are thinkers. One ship has challenged our assumptions, forced us to rethink strategy, and reminded us that humans are unpredictable. Meanwhile, aboard the USS Resolute, Captain Daniel Hayes and Lieutenant Mira Keel navigated through a peaceful sector. The human warship had completed its mission, to demonstrate human ingenuity, courage, and morality without initiating conflict. Hayes reflected on what had been achieved. Humans, he said quietly, are capable of more than destruction. We demonstrate power not only through weapons but through foresight, strategy, and action. Today the Empire saw it clearly. Mira glanced at him. Do you think they will ever truly understand the human mind? Perhaps not fully, Hayes replied, but they have seen enough to respect it. And respect is a step toward understanding. Humans act boldly yet carefully. They anticipate, adapt, and exploit opportunities others would miss. That is why they endure, and why they are remarkable. Across the sectors, Imperial officers worked tirelessly, attempting to analyze the human mission. Every report highlighted the same patterns: precise movements, calculated risks, assistance to struggling colonies, and evasion of a superior fleet without confrontation. They realized that humans combined courage, intelligence, and morality in a way no simulation had predicted. Commander Rella, one officer said hesitantly, "The humans, they are unlike any other species we've encountered. They don't just fight, they plan, they adapt, and they act with purpose that is beyond mere survival." Rella nodded. Exactly. Humans are not ordinary. They observe, anticipate, and adapt. They see the opportunities others overlook, and they act decisively. One ship has reminded us that intelligence and courage can achieve more than fleets of warships. Admiral Holvik reviewed the reports, shaking his head in disbelief. We have underestimated them. We assumed humans relied on firepower and aggression. But their strength lies in their mind, their foresight, and their ability to turn risk into advantage. Back on the USS Resolute, Hayes considered the broader impact of their mission. The Empire will talk about today for years, he said. They will remember that humans are bold, clever, and principled, but they may never fully understand us, and that is fine. Humans do not need approval to act wisely and courageously. Mira smiled slightly. They cannot predict us, and that is our advantage. Yet they will respect it even if they cannot fully explain it. Hayes nodded. Exactly. Humans survive and thrive not just through force, but through intelligence, observation, and adaptability. One ship has demonstrated that today. The galaxy has seen it, and the Empire cannot ignore it. In the Imperial High Command, officers debated how to respond to the new reality. Some argued for renewed pursuit, but most recognized that conventional tactics would fail against humans who did not act predictably. The lesson was clear. Humans must be studied, respected, and approached differently. Commander Rella Varn addressed the Council. The humans' actions were deliberate. They have demonstrated that strength is not always measured by weapons. Strategy, foresight, and adaptability can achieve outcomes that fleets of warships cannot. The Empire must adapt to understand them or risk continual surprise. A young officer whispered, "They outsmarted us without firing a single shot. How is that possible?" Rella smiled faintly. Humans act with intelligence, courage, and principle. That is their strength. One ship has reminded us that predictability is a weakness against a species capable of seeing multiple steps ahead. Across the galaxy, news of the human warship's mission spread quietly among colonies and outposts. Those who had been helped spoke of the humans' skill, courage, and foresight. Stories circulated of a ship that appeared in moments of need, repaired systems, stabilized colonies, and left without confrontation. The legend of human ingenuity began to grow. Captain Hayes monitored the reports reaching them. Humans are remembered for more than combat, he said to Mira. We leave a mark through action, intelligence, and courage. That is what distinguishes us. Today the Empire and the galaxy have learned it firsthand. Mira studied the data. They cannot fully predict us. They cannot control us. And they will remember that. One ship has achieved more than an entire fleet ever could. Hayes nodded, his eyes scanning the stars ahead. Humans do not rely solely on power or aggression. We rely on observation, adaptation, and ingenuity. Today, the Empire has learned the consequences of underestimating a human. They will not forget. Back in the Imperial High Command, Admiral Holvik convened another council. The mood was sober. Officers presented reports, analysis, and lessons learned. The Empire realized that human strength lay not in size or technology alone, but in mind, courage, and adaptability. Rella spoke again, quietly but firmly. Humans challenge assumptions, adapt to unforeseen circumstances, and act boldly when others hesitate. They are not merely a species to fight. They are a species to understand, respect, and anticipate. Holvik's gaze softened, though determination remained. We have been shown the truth. Humans are formidable not because of weapons, but because of their intelligence, courage, and adaptability. One ship has reminded us that the galaxy cannot control them, nor predict their actions. That is a lesson we cannot forget. On board the USS Resolute, Hayes prepared to leave the sector entirely. Their mission had been complete. Demonstrate human ingenuity, courage, and morality to a galaxy that had underestimated them. Yet Hayes knew that the impact would endure far longer than their presence. They will remember today, he said quietly. They will study it, discuss it, and respect it. Humans are never ordinary. We think, act, and adapt in ways that no empire can fully anticipate. And that is our strength. Mira looked at the stars ahead. Humans are remarkable. They do not rely solely on power. They rely on intellect, courage, and morality. And that leaves a mark far deeper than any weapon could. Hayes smiled. Exactly. Humanity's strength is not in destruction, but in creativity, observation, and bold action. One ship has demonstrated that today, and the galaxy will remember. As the human warship disappeared into the unknown, the Empire's fleets returned to their stations, forever changed by the events they had witnessed. Officers debated, strategized, and revised doctrines. They knew that humans could never be predicted, yet they also knew that humans acted with intelligence, courage, and principle. Commander Rella Varn observed quietly. They are unlike any species we have encountered. We must adapt our understanding or continue to be surprised. Humans are capable of brilliance, courage, and foresight beyond our predictions. Admiral Holvik nodded solemnly. One ship has reminded us of what humans truly are. Clever, courageous, and principled, and we will not forget it. In distant colonies, stories circulated of the human warship that appeared to aid those in need, that outsmarted fleets, and vanished without conflict. Humans were remembered not as conquerors, but as beings capable of extraordinary skill, intelligence, and courage. Captain Hayes watched the stars pass in silence. Humans leave a mark through action, foresight, and courage. One ship has reminded the Empire and the galaxy that humans are never ordinary. We endure because we act with intelligence, principle, and bravery. Mira nodded quietly. The galaxy will remember, Captain. Humans cannot be ignored, predicted, or underestimated. Hayes leaned back, eyes on the stars. And that is the message we carry.
Humanity is remarkable not because of strength alone, but because of thought, courage, and ingenuity.
One ship has reminded the galaxy of that truth. That is how humans endure. That is how humans inspire. That is how humans triumph in ways no one expects. The USS Resolute continued its journey through the stars, leaving behind lessons that would endure across the Empire and the galaxy. Humans had been underestimated, yet through courage, intelligence, and principle, they had demonstrated their power in ways that could never be ignored. And in the hearts and minds of the Empire, a single truth had taken root. Humans are extraordinary. They are clever, brave, and principled. They act boldly and thoughtfully, leaving a mark wherever they go. The galaxy had witnessed humanity's strength, not through aggression, but through ingenuity, courage, and foresight. One ship had changed the way an empire thought about humans forever, and that was only the beginning.